What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Godlike Naruto Harem Sasuke and civilian council bashing? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Kakashi was jumping through the forest with all his might, Pakun right behind him. He could tell from the animals running away from the Valley of the End that the battle between Naruto and Sasuke was fierce. I hope they don't kill each other, Kakashi thought when suddenly he heard a loud boom from afar, making him go even faster, giving even Pakun a hard time to catch up. When Kakashi arrived he gasped to see so much damage done to the area. Dear Kami, those two did all this. Looking around he saw how much damage they did to the valley, almost rivaling the battle between the first Hokage and Madara. The most noticeable part was that it appeared that the explosion caused some rocks to fall to the ground. Then his eye caught Sasuke's form lying on the ground near the water. Pakun looked around and turned to Kakashi, who runs to his subordinate to see his condition. He was battered greatly and had many wounds over his body but was still alive. Good, he is alive, but yet how did Naruto manage to stand against Sasuke using the curse seal? No doubt he used Kyuubi's chakra, he thought as he made a clone. The clone picked up Sasuke and tied him up. While the original looked around for Naruto while thinking to himself, he stopped Sasuke. Imagine if he was properly trained, he might have killed him. But yet maybe he should have. This is going to bring a lot of tension, he thought when his eye spotted something in the water. It was blood. As Kakashi followed the trail towards the waterfall his eye widened in horror. No, he whispered. Buried underneath some of the rocks near the waterfall was Naruto, his left hand dangling along with his leg. Naruto! Kakashi cried, startling Pakun as the Jonin ran towards the said boy. Acting quickly he began pushing the rocks off of Naruto. As he did he now and then had flashes of Obito again in the same condition, doubling his efforts. When he finally moved the last rock he took Naruto's form and, even for a veteran such as himself, nearly gasped. Naruto's entire right body, along with some parts of his left, was completely ruined, with blood pouring out of some of the wounds. Even his right eye was so bruised that it was shut, the eyelid purple. However, he could see some repairs happening to them. The fox is probably using his chakra to save Naruto, Kakashi thought as he turned to look at his clone, carrying Sasuke like he was a dead animal. Take him back to Konoha and inform Tsunade to prepare a room for an operation. Also make sure Sasuke is put in the wing for prisoners. He said the last part with a growl. The clone nodded and began heading back. While that was happening Kakashi began doing what he could to help Naruto's injuries. Konoha. A few hours later in Konoha, Tsunade was dashing with all her might towards the hospital. She had only heard from Kakashi's clone how terrible Naruto's condition was before the civilian council and elders barged into the room, demanding to know what happened to Sasuke. But when a Chunin reported that Kakashi had returned with Naruto, Tsunade literally bashed her way through the annoying people towards the hospital. True, she had to treat the other members of the retrieval team, but she could trust that to Shizune and the other doctors. When she arrived she was panting like crazy, with all the doctors, nurses and patients looking at her. Several doctors and nurses ran up to Tsunade reporting about Sasuke's condition. Hold on, Tsunade shouted, causing everyone to quiet. I could care less about that Uchiha Gaki, what about Naruto? What's his condition? She asked. None of them said a word and were trying their best not to look at her. Her eyes widened at this. Is there anyone even watching over him or preparing for the operation? She asked with a hint of anger in her voice, making many nervous. Finally a nurse who was dumb enough spoke. Isn't more important that we look over Uchiha-sama than that demon brat? That was the wrong thing to say, because in a flash Tsunade sent her crashing into the wall, knocking her out at once. Tsunade was letting out so much killer intent that some people began to pass out. Idiots all of you, she yelled in anger, causing them all to flinch. When I'm done with the operation you have better have your resignations on the front desk and yourselves out of here. Then she ran towards the room that Kakashi had placed Naruto in. When she got there she had the same reaction that Kakashi had when he first saw Naruto. Those bastards didn't even bandage him. Tsunade thought as she immediately ran over to Naruto's side and began working over him, with Shizune lending her assistance. When she saw her grandfather's necklace around his neck, she ripped it off of him and threw it to the side. You're not taking another you damn necklace. Tsunade thought as she began using her chakra to heal Naruto. A couple of hours later, outside Naruto's room was the rest of the Rookie 12 along with the Sand siblings. Now and then they would notice the glares that some of the staff members were sending towards the door but would continue walking. It didn't take an idiot to know what was happening. Most of these people would rather see Naruto dead than alive, however they wouldn't dare risk getting through several genin and the Hokage herself. Finally Tsunade and Shizune both walked out of the room. They both looked completely exhausted as Tsunade rested her form against the wall. It was Hinata who finally spoke, much to everyone's surprise. Hokage-sama, is Naruto-kun? She asked while everyone also looked at the Hokage. Tsunade took a deep breath and then smiled at the genins. He's fine, she said, causing them all to breathe in relief. But he's in critical condition and won't be able to leave for a month or so. Also he's asleep right now so you can't see him. Isn't there something we can do? Sakura asked. She felt horrible for begging Naruto to get Sasuke back, but she never wanted him to almost die. Tsunade looked both ways before looking at the genins. I want you all to watch over Naruto, make sure no one comes into the room. I don't trust these people right now. Then she turned towards the Sand siblings. I know I can't order you guys. Gaara raised a hand. We will help watch over him, he said while his siblings nod their heads. Tsunade nodded. The council is probably going to raise hell about this. Hokage Mansion, council room. A few minutes later she realized how right she was. The elders, along with the civilian council, had called for a meeting, thus forcing the shinobi council to come as well. The civilian sides were all arguing how the demon brat nearly killed the last Uchiha and were demanding his head. Enough, Tsunade shouted as she banged her fist against the desk. This caused everyone to close their mouths while Jiraiya, who was standing beside Tsunade, glared at them. The reason we are here is to discuss about Sasuke and what shall be done with him, she said. Sakiko, Sakura's mother, screeched, what we should do is thank him for wounding the demon. This gives us a chance to kill him once and for all. All the other civilians nod their heads. The clan heads however shook their heads while a tick mark appeared on Tsunade's face as she glared at the civilians, making them nervous. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, Sakiko Haruno. Tsunade growled, making the said woman nervous. What will happen is that Sasuke shall be stripped of his ninja rank and shall be given psychological training by Inoichi. Also his chakra shall be sealed so he cannot escape again. Furthermore I will be promoting those of the retrieval team to Chunin. The civilian council roared in anger that Tsunade was going to promote the demon to Chunin and stripe Sasuke of his ninja career. However the clan heads all agreed with the idea and thought it was a good one. However before anyone could say anything else Shizune came barging in with a terrified look on her face. Shizune, what is it? Suande asked her apprentice. Panting, Shizune said, Tsunade-sama, a large crowd of civilians and ninja are making their way towards the hospital. I think they heard of Naruto's condition and are trying to finish him off. Tsunade's eyes widened in horror and anger. The clan heads were not pleased with this either, but the civilians seemed happy enough. Sakiko even had the nerve to say, see, the people of Konoha agree with us that something must be done about the demon. This earned her a glare from Tsunade, who merely got up and began making her way towards the hospital. But before she left the room she turned towards the civilian council, releasing a large amount of killer intent to them. For your sakes he better be less hurt than he already is, she said before storming out with Shizune and Jiraiya following her. Konoha Hospital. Back at the hospital, the large crowd of civilians along with several Chunin could be seen banging against the door of the hospital, crying for Naruto's blood. Finally they managed to break through the door that was being held by the hospital staff and began running towards Naruto's room, knocking over several patients, doctors and nurses along the way. What no one knew was that there was someone already there. Hinata Hyuga, the one who had a crush on Naruto, remained beside the door while the others went elsewhere to get gifts for Naruto and the retrieval team. The Sand siblings however went to report to their village of the mission status. She however refused to leave Naruto's side and stood at her post. That's when she heard several voices yelling and getting closer too. When she looked to the right side of the hallway her eyes widened when she saw a large group of people heading towards her and all of them were yelling for the demon's head. However when they got there they saw Hinata in her clan's gentle fist style and her Byakugan activated. Move it, kid. The time has come for this demon to die. A civilian shouted. Hinata shook her head and tightened her stance, waiting for one of them to attack. Even after all he's done for this village, you still despise him? The only demons here are you people, she said in defiance. A civilian snorted. Get her out of the way, he yelled. Soon the people charged towards Hinata in blind rage, hoping that sheer force would be sufficient enough to get her out of the way. However, they were unprepared for a large amount of sand to strike them, pushing them away. Hinata turned around to see Gaara walking up to her, an angry look on his face, making some of the people nervous. If you even try to hurt Naruto, he said while letting out some ki, I won't hesitate to kill you. Before anyone could reply, there was a noise coming from inside the room. Sensing what it was, Gaara moved quickly and wrapped his sand around Hinata and himself as a shield just as an explosion came out of the room, blowing some people away. Naruto-kun, Hinata cried. Outside the hospital, Tsunade was about to go in when she saw the explosion. That's where Naruto's room was. Tsunade shouted as she ran towards the explosion, while several Anbu appeared behind her asking her to remain behind while they investigate, but she ignored them completely. When she got there along with Jiraiya, Shizune, the Anbu, the Rookie 12 and their senseis, all they saw were several people wearing black capes while black masks covered their faces. And in the one in front hands was Naruto-kun, Hinata shouted from above as she looked out the hole with Gaara. Tsunade looked up at them and then glared at the man who had Naruto. Let him go, she growled. The man seemed unfazed by this and merely hid Naruto behind his cape. Then he said in a deep voice, in 5 years, the Shadenrike will destroy Konoha. Tsunade's eyes widened at what he said, but then she noticed that they started to shimmer away, taking Naruto with them. Wait, she cried just as Gaara willed his sand to attack, hoping to stop them. But it was too late, they had disappeared into thin air, leaving nothing, not even a trace of them. Tsunade just blinked very hard, hoping that this wasn't happening. But when nothing happened, she slammed her hands into the outside wall of the hospital, leaving a large crack. God damn it, she yelled as she collapsed to her knees while Jiraiya tried to comfort her. The rest of the Rookie 12 couldn't believe it either. Hinata got to her knees and began to cry that her crush was gone. Kurenai jumped up to where she was and tried to comfort her as well. Gaara gave them some space. The mob inside the hospital saw all this through the hole made in the wall. Finally one of them said, well, thank Kami, the demon is gone. I say we should celebrate. But his words quickly died down when sand began to wrap around him. He looked up and flinched at the glare that Gaara was giving him. Before anyone could react, Tsunade shouted, Gaara, send that man down here. Complying, Gaara threw the man down onto the street, hard, knocking some of his teeth out. But just as he was about to get up, he felt a shadow looming over him along with a massive amount of killer intent. Now, she said with a dark voice as she cracked her knuckles. What exactly did you say? Swallowing hard, the man said defiantly. I am glad that they took the damn demon, and I hope they give him a slow and painful. He never got to finish his sentence. Just like she had done to the nurse a few hours ago, Tsunade punched the man so hard in the face that he was sent flying over the village, much to the shock of everyone. Tsunade was taking deep breaths as tears began to come out of her eyes. However, she knew her pain was nothing compared to Hinata, who was still crying. Kurenai, the said Jonin, looked down at the Hokage. Take Hinata to your place for her to calm down. I don't think the Hyuga compound is a good place for her to calm down, she said as she headed back to the Hokage mansion. As she walked back, she knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end. On top of the Hokage mansion, Tsunade had gathered every Jonin and Chunin available, preparing to give the order to look for Naruto. And remember, we can only assume that these people are extremely skilled, so be careful. If you believe that you'll need support, then contact other teams and have them move to your location, but continue to follow them at a distance. That will not happen, Tsunade-sama, a voice said. Tsunade turned around and saw Danzo, Kaharu, and Hamaru walking up to Tsunade, with the looks on their faces that made Tsunade know this wasn't good. If either Kumo or Iwa realizes that we do not have our Jinchuriki and that the last Uchiha is being rid of his shinobi status, then they will no doubt use this as an opportunity to attack us. Danzo said calmly, while inside he was seething that the Kyuubi child, who was wounded and in his reach, was now gone. But despite his desire to send his root agents after them, He knew that Konoha was not in a state to be abandoned with such a low number of shinobi. Tsunade frowned at the elders. So what, you suggest we just abandon him? Koharu nodded. Exactly. We are in no shape to go out on another hunt for a ninja. Besides, we all Naruto's loyalty to the village. He will find a way to escape and come back here or die trying. Either way we win. Before Tsunade could retort, the sound of cheering could be heard down below. People were running around screaming in joy, yelling, "The demon is gone." That's when Tsunade noticed a large mob heading towards the area where Naruto's apartment was. Tsunade's eyes widened as she realized what they were doing before turning towards the gathered ninjas. "I want all of you to head down and assist the Anbu in restoring order. Arrest those responsible for these riots and send them to Ibiki," she ordered. The ninjas all nodded and dispersed to control the situation. Suddenly Shizune came running up and Tsunade was hoping it wasn't bad news. But it appeared that Kami was frowning down on them that day. "Tsunade-sama, the Hokage vault has been breached." Everyone, Tsunade and the elders along with Danzo, widened their eyes in shock. The vault was one of the most guarded areas in the village, with dozens of powerful seals on them. "How much was stolen?" Tsunade asked Shizune. The brown-haired woman shook her head. "Everything. Scrolls, documents, weapons, even the scrolls of seals, everything in there is gone." Tsunade cursed to herself, wondering how this was happening. First Naruto is taken. The idiots are celebrating his disappearance and the return of their hero, Sasuke Uchiha, and now this. I think we can all agree that this shall be kept a secret from the rest of the village. If word somehow gets out, we're going to have a hell of protecting the village. Tsunade said, "But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop looking for you, Naruto," she thought. However, unknown to them, someone was watching the whole thing. Elsewhere, inside a cave where the only source of light was lantern on top of a pillar, several images of people began to surround it. One of them spoke first. "Report. What is the situation in Konoha?" he asked. Another person, with yellow eyes, replied, "Sasuke Uchiha has been recovered and brought back to Konoha, but he's being put under arrest for his attempt to leave the village. Furthermore, the nine-tailed Jinchuriki has been taken." White Zetsu said before Black Zetsu spoke. "The people who took him call themselves the Shadenrike. Looks like this changes our plans," Deidara said. The leader nodded his head. "It does, but for now it is a mere setback. We shall focus on capturing the others and then turn our attention to find the nine tails," he said. "Anything else?" Zetsu nodded. "Only that the man that was carrying Naruto, his chakra levels were off the charts. Tailed beast level almost." The leader narrowed his eyes. "I see." Kisame chuckled. "He sounds like he's going to be one hard cookie to break." "Enough, this meeting is adjourned. Return to what you were doing, but remember to be ready when I contact you," the leader said. Somewhere else, deep within a dark room, Naruto Uzumaki was slowly waking up. He tried to move, but the pain in his body made him wince, and thus he was stuck how he was. However, he did take the opportunity to look around, though there wasn't much to see. "Where am I?" he asked no one in particular. "Your guess is as good as mine," a voice inside his head replied. "Kyuubi?" Naruto asked, trying to figure out why the fox was talking to him of all times. Yeah, it's me," the fox replied before letting out a sigh. "Man, I'm beat. You have no idea how hard it is to heal all your wounds that you've obtained during that little skirmish," the Kyuubi said. "I see you two have woken up," an unfamiliar voice said. Naruto craned his head to the right and saw within the darkness the silhouette of a man could be seen. In his right hand was a golden kakara. He appeared to be wearing a robe that went down to his knees and looked like he had horns sticking out of his head. But what really got Naruto's attention were his eyes. The eyes had a ripple-like pattern over the eyeballs, closing in a small black dot, and had a light purple color. Naruto could feel the Kyuubi's eyes widened. It can't be," he said in shock. The man chuckled as he continued walking towards the bed. "It's good to see you too, Kurama-kun." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "The Kyuubi has a name?" he thought before speaking. "Just who are you?" he asked. Suddenly the man stopped chuckling and Naruto could sense the seriousness radiating off of him even though he couldn't see the man's face. "I am your past, while you are my future. We are one and the same," the man said as he finally stepped out of the shadows. It was then Naruto could see that this guy was really old, what with all the wrinkles on his face and how pure white his hair was too. Also, the horns on his head were really attached to a headband he wore. The headband had a swirling circle on it too. My name is not important, but you can call me the Rikudo Sennin. As to where you are, my fellow Uzumaki, you are home. Naruto blinked several times, looking at the man who stared back at him with those eyes. Am I supposed to know who you are? Wait, did you just say fellow Uzumaki? Does that mean you're an Uzumaki? He suddenly yelled. He felt Kyuubi or Kurama bang around in his head. Baka, show some respect to the god of ninjutsu and the founder of your clan, Kurama yelled. Naruto gasped at the revelation and turned back towards the older man. You founded my clan? How old are you then? He asked. The man laughed out loud before going into a coughing fit but still smiling. I should have expected that. Not doubt that Pink Banshee and the rest of Konoha's civilian council probably cut that part out of the academy's history, along with everything else, like how the symbol on the Konoha vest is the Uzumaki symbol. He said as he sat down on a chair next to the bed. Naruto's eyes widened like plates, but he stayed silent as the man continued. I suppose I should start at the beginning. He said, Naruto-kun, I want you to listen good, understood? Naruto nodded. Very well. In the early times of the world, when clans had yet to form or hidden villages were far from being created, it was my time and I was known as the Sage of the Six Paths. I originated from the Whirlpool country, though it wasn't called that at the time. My people were well known for their longevity, but I was born with these unique eyes, the Rinnegan. With them I brought forth peace and tranquility along with the creation of ninjutsu, combining yin and yang elements. However, my greatest achievement was defeating a certain demon, the primordial of destruction, and might as well be called the apocalypse. The 10 tails, or Jubi as it is called. Naruto's mouth dropped in shock. You're telling me that there was a demon with more tails than the Kyuubi? He asked as he tried to get up, but winced in pain immediately. The sage gently pushed Naruto down. Be careful, Naruto-kun. It has been 3 months since they took you from Konoha and you're still not in the best condition to be moving around. I'm sure Kurama-kun is still healing you. The man said. If possible. Naruto's eyes widened even more. 3 months. I've been here for 3 months? He yelled but winced again at the pain. Actually, now that it was mentioned, Naruto finally got a good look at himself. He realized that his entire body was wrapped in bandages, including his face. He couldn't really feel his right side or most of his left, and he could only move his left arm. Also, he felt several stitches across his body as well. What the hell happened to me? He yelled before being bonked on the head by the sage's Kakura. For Kami's sake, boy, calm yourself. The sage said before sitting down again. Now where was I? Ah yes. I battled the 10 tails for months until I used a powerful Fuinjutsu to defeat it, by sealing it into my own body. Thus I became the first Jinchuriki and was hailed as a hero of the world. Naruto just stared at the old man in awe. This man was probably even more impressive than the 4th Hokage, Naruto's idol. Wow, Asen, that is so cool. He said before frowning. Wait, if you sealed the 10 tails, then what happened to the other tailed beasts? The sage smirked. Well, you see, they didn't exist at the time. The 10 tails demonic chakra, no offense Kurama-kun, was too powerful for the seal. I realized that when my death came it would be free again to bring forth destruction once more. So I used my most powerful jutsu, only usable by me due to my dojutsu, the creation of all things. With it I created the 9-tailed beasts with the 10 tails chakra, giving them forms as well. As for its body, I used another jutsu to trap it in a stone prison that I sent to the sky. This prison became the moon. Whoa! Naruto cried as he heard all this. So then what? He asked with excitement, really liking this story. The sage smiled at the boy's enthusiasm and continued. Well, on my deathbed I gathered my 2 sons to choose one of them as my successor. My oldest one had my eyes, my powerful chakra and spiritual energy, while the youngest one had my body, my powerful will and physical energy. My oldest son wanted to use power to bring peace, while my younger son wanted to use love to bring peace. And you picked the youngest one, right? Naruto asked. Exactly, but his brother became envious of this and attacked his younger brother. Of course, this feud continued through their descendants. The Senju clan founded by the younger one and the Uchiha clan founded by the older one. The man said. What? Naruto shouted. Are you telling me your kids were the founders of the 2 clans that founded Konoha? He asked. The sage raised an eyebrow. I'm surprised you know that. But yes, they did, and the feud continued onward through them. And to my disappointment, neither of their clans truly brought peace no matter how much they tried. Their promise to me seemed to only spark war between them and the world. There was still something that Naruto did not understand. Wait, if you died, then how are you here? Kurama nodded. Yes, I would like to know that as well. I remember your last words to me and my brothers. The man sighed. Well, you see, thanks to my creation of all things along with my clan, which by now I'm sure you know is the Uzumaki clan, we created a room in another dimension with seals surrounding both the inside and outside of the room. The said room that we are currently in. This room feeds me natural chakra, thus sustaining my life force. From here I can also see all and hear all that happens around the world, and so far I'm not happy with how things turn out, especially with my country, village and clan. He said the last part as he tightened his hand around his staff, making Naruto a little nervous due to the killer intent the sage was letting out. What happened to our clan? Naruto asked in wonder. Genocide, the sage said once he calmed down. During the Third Shinobi War, both Iwa and Kumo attacked the village at once, overpowering the defenders. Many clansmen and women were lost during the invasion. Fortunately, we came prepared for the worst, and while many of our kin fled the village and country, scattering across the nations, the rest hid in pocket dimension rooms protected by powerful seals and barriers that stopped the enemy from getting any further. It was 2 years inside the rooms while only 4 months went by out in the real world. By then Uzumaki and the nation was in ruin by the war. The sage noticed Naruto gripping the blanket covering him in anger. But, the sage said, catching Naruto's attention, we endure, and under the guidance of your uncle and myself we began to secretly rebuild both the nation and the village, while others went to bring back our scattered clansmen. Naruto blinked at him for a few seconds before realization came in. So you're saying that my family is here? Even my parents? He asked in excitement. The sage looked at Naruto before sighing. Naruto, your parents are dead. They died during the Kurama-kun's attack on Konoha 12 years ago. Naruto looked down, upset. But before you get gloomy, why don't you listen to who they were? Naruto's eyes lit up and looked up at the man who chuckled. Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki, the second container of Kurama-kun, the first being Mito Uzumaki, the wife of the Shoden. And your father, he hesitated at this part. Your father was Minato Namikaze, the Yodem Hokage. Naruto couldn't believe what he just heard. He was surprised to learn that his mother was the container of the Kyuubi before him, but was shocked to learn that his father was the fourth Hokage. My own father sealed the Kyuubi inside me? Why? He asked as tears began to form. The sage put a comforting hand on Naruto. It's because he couldn't ask for anyone else to sacrifice their child for the sake of the village. Also, he had faith that you could control Kurama-kun's chakra, which I believe you can too. Rikudo said. Naruto nodded, wiping some tears off of his face. But why didn't my uncle come and get me? And what about my mother? He asked. Rikudo sighed. As I said, your mother died that night. For your uncle, he came to Konoha a few days after the attack, demanding that you'd been turned over to him. However, the third lied to them and said you had died because he knew that if Konoha's only Jinchuriki left, then the village they would lose an advantage against the other great villages. Of course your uncle didn't know this at the time but had to leave, otherwise he might give away that the Whirlpool Nation and Uzumaki were rebuilding, especially since it was Konoha that betrayed us during the Third War by not coming to our time of need. Naruto couldn't believe it, the third lying to him about his parents, about his family who thought he was dead. He could have been happy all his life, but Konoha denied him that. Even worse, the village he tried to gain respect from betrayed his mom's home village. Now he felt so angry towards Konoha, like every last bit of loyalty he had towards it was slipping away. I just can't believe it, I don't know what to say except, thank you. Naruto finally said, I can see now that perhaps Konoha was never the right place for me, but here was. The sage raised an eyebrow. Well, if you insist, then I shall tell you my plan. He said as he got up and walked away from Naruto, who just watched his every movement. I've realized that both my sons were right with their ideas for peace. Love is the key to peace, but love brings forth power, allowing us to accomplish peace. I desire to lead the Uzumaki clan, my clan, and yours to lead this world to peace. However, if I leave this room I will automatically die. That is where you come in, Naruto-kun. Naruto cocked his head as the sage continued. You see, you're actually a direct descendant of mine and thus the only one who can control the full power of these eyes. However, yours will take a while to develop, which is why I shall fuse my eyes with yours, thus increasing your powers tenfold. You Naruto shall become the next sage of the six paths and lead this world to true peace with love and power. Naruto's eyes widened at this, just thinking of all that power, of all the good he could do with it as well. Well, I can't let my ancestor down now, can I? He said with a determined look in his eyes. Rikudo smiled at his descendant. That's what I like to hear. Once I'm done transferring the eyes to you, then your uncle and some of your clan's best fighters will train you endlessly to control your new power. But first there is some stuff that I need to fill you in on. But first let's talk about a certain Hyuga girl. Naruto frowned, trying to figure out who he meant. The only girl who was a Hyuga that he knew was Hinata? What about her? He asked. The Rikudo sighed. Are you really that blind after chasing that little pinkhead? Clearly you must have noticed that Hinata has a crush on you since the academy and before. I mean, you did save her from a bunch of bullies. Naruto thought for a moment before the memory came to him. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Then he frowned and a serious expression came to him. So Hinata likes me. Why hasn't anyone ever told me? Why didn't she tell me? The Rikudo saw this and patted Naruto's head. I believe that you know the answer to that, Naruto-kun. No one cared about you to tell you that she had feelings for you. Also, don't blame Hinata, she was just too shy to tell you. But now is the time for you to make up for all that lost time. Now is the time to act. Naruto looked at his hand, thinking everything that has happened so far, the lies, the pain, everything that has happened to him, and that's when he came to a decision. He looked up at the Rikudo Sennin with a look in his eyes, determination. Alright, let's do it. But before that I need you to do something. The sage nodded. And that is? Konoha. It had been 3 months since Naruto had been taken. The days had been filled with people celebrating the demon's departure from the village. The end results were Enbu being sent by Tsunade to quell them and sent the instigators to have a session with Ibiki. This had caused arguments to come from the civilian council and a few complaints from the elder council as well. And today, a rainy day to be precise, was another argument, this time about Sasuke's status. The civilian council had been pushing for Tsunade to let Sasuke resume his status as a shinobi of Konoha. And why should I? Tsunade asked. Sakiko rolled her eyes. Because we need him to revive the Sharingan, which will bring much fame to Konoha. She shrieked, and also allow Sakura to get some of his clan's fortune for us, she thought to herself. Tsunade rolled her eyes as the other civilian members nodded their heads in agreement. And how do you know that Sasuke won't just try to leave the village again to join Orochimaru? You should all be grateful that I'm not sending him to prison for his action against Konoha. If it weren't for the demon, then Uchiha-sama would have never left the village. A fat civilian shouted. That is bullshit. Tsunade yelled while leaking at some killer intent, making the civilians nervous. Naruto in no way, shape or form had anything to do with Sasuke Uchiha in leaving the village. You're just placing blame on someone because you all hate him. Shikaku sighed. If I might make a suggestion, he said, causing everyone to look at him. Though it is troublesome, perhaps we should focus on more things like the sudden drop of the economy in both Konoha and the Fire Country. Tsunade nodded and revealed a letter from the desk. This just came from the daimyo. Tsunade said, the Land of Waves, Spring, and Tea have all broken their treaties with Konoha and the Fire Country along with Takigakure and Suna. Somehow the parties over Naruto's disappearance reached their ears and they refused to trade with a village or nation that celebrates a traitor but curses a hero. The civilians and elders were at a loss of words of this. But then Sakiko yelled, it is clearly the demon's fault that we lost all these alliances and treaties. If you hadn't done such things to Uchiha-sama, then this wouldn't have happened. She said like it was the most logical thing ever. The clan heads, elders and Hokage were all looking at her, wondering how stupid she was. Then Tsunade said with a bit of anger. It's because of Naruto that we had any of these alliances in the first place. The Fire Daimyo is furious about these turns of events and has even demanded that Sasuke be executed on the spot, which many of the other nations would like as well. The civilians all roared in disagreement but were silenced by a glare from Tsunade. For your sakes I sent an ulterior to them, which they accepted. She watched as smiles appeared on their faces. She smirked, savoring this. Sasuke's clan status shall be stripped and his compound along with its contents shall be confiscated as well. Everything shall now belong to the village, meaning the shinobi part, not the civilians," she said, knowing she blew down not just Sasuke but the civilians as well. Tsunade watched with a smirk as the civilian council's faces fell at hearing the news. Sakiko was the first to react. "You can't do that," she yelled, making everyone wince in pain. "Sasuke needs all that so he can revive his clan, otherwise he'll leave the village." Tsunade rolled her eyes. "Thanks for reminding me. Also Sasuke has been given a repression seal next to his heart. So if he should ever go 5 kilometers away from the village without permission from his sensei, or me, it will activate and kill him. Furthermore, one more outburst against my authority or involvement in Shinobi Affairs Civilian Council. I will personally remove you from your positions and terminate the Civilian Council altogether." This made them all shut up and caused all the clan heads to smirk. The Hokage did indeed have the right to terminate any part of the council if they ever went out of their jurisdiction. Tsunade felt like she won a victory for Naruto, seeing how Jiraiya's spy network had yet to find anything of where he was. Former Uchiha compound. In front of the former compound of the Uchiha clan during this rainy night, stood a man. His entire body from his feet to his head was covered in bandages, while over that he wore a cloak with a hood over his head. He stared at the compound with emotionless eyes. Then he disappeared without a trace. To reappear inside the Naka Shrine, the underground meeting place of the Uchiha clan and where the tablet of the Sage of the Six Paths was kept. "So it's been here all this time," he growled as he walked over to the tablet and examined it. "Good, it isn't damaged and still readable," he said to himself. Then with a swipe of his hand the tablet disappeared. "Phase 1 complete, time for Phase 2, the man said before disappearing himself. Hyuga compound. Hinata had finished brushing her teeth as she prepared to head for bed, though judging by the shadows underneath her eyes, she hadn't been getting much. The reason was because of Naruto's disappearance 3 months ago, or to be more precise when he was kidnapped. She knew that Tsunade wanted to send out search teams, but the damn civilian council and elders wouldn't allow it. And the Hyuga elders weren't helping either, trying to set Hinata up with some foreign noble's son. For Kami's sake, she was only 13. Naruto-kun, she thought to herself before heading towards her room. However, when she opened her door, her eyes widened at seeing a hooded man sitting on her bed. "About time you came here," the man said as he turned to face her, revealing his bandaged face. Hinata made the gentle fist stance on instinct, activating her Byakugan. "Who are you and how did you get in here?" she asked softly. She was contemplating whether or not to call the guards for assistance. But she worried that this man might kill her before she got the chance, and she had a feeling that she was no match for him. She watched carefully as the man stood up and sighed. Then he said, "I bring a message from Naruto Uzumaki." That name was all it took for Hinata to drop her stance and forget about the current situation. Naruto was alive and this man knew him. "Why, you know where Naruto-kun is?" she asked with hope in her voice. The man nodded before pulling something out of his robe's pockets. It was a black book. "He says that he is sorry that he never realized your feelings for him and that he is ready to accept them," he said with a soft voice as he walked towards Hinata slowly, as to not startle her. When he noticed that a small smile on her face, he continued, "And he says to not trust Konoha." This caught Hinata's attention. She was shocked that Naruto would say something like that. Wasn't his dream to become Hokage? Why would he say something like that? What do you mean by that?" she asked warily. The man gave her the black book, which she took slowly. "Read this. It contains everything that has happened to Naruto and the people he made his life so miserable." He paused so Hinata could take that all in. "If you cherish Naruto as you say you do, then do not tell anyone about this conversation or about the book. I shall return in 3 days for an answer from you upon where your loyalty lies. And remember," Hinata looked up at the man, "Naruto is not forcing you, but you must decide if your heart is to him, or to a village that has done wrong to him." And with that the man disappeared into thin air, leaving no trace that he was ever there. Hinata just blinked several times before looking down at the black book in her hands. "This has everything about Naruto and the people who wronged him," she thought to herself as she entered her room and shut the door, locking it. Hisan Uzumaki, uncle of Naruto Uzumaki and younger brother of Kushina Uzumaki, was standing on top of the lookout of the Azukage mansion aka the Shadenrike HQ. looking over the rebuilt village of Uzushiogakure. Hyson had red spiky hair with a ponytail going down. He wore a black leather coat with silver wristbands and shoulder pads. Underneath it was a black shirt with a fishnet. Imagine his like Sephiroth but without long silver hair. His dark blue eyes scanned the village and the sky. Strapped to his waist was a sword with a black hilt. Strapped to his head was a forehead protector with the Uzu symbol on it. He was both the daimyo, Azukage and leader of the Shadenrike, but he planned on handing all 3 titles to Naruto when he was ready, and he would act as his nephew's advisor. He had to thank the Rikudo Sennin for the creation of the Shadenrike. It was thanks to him that the members of the organization gained new abilities thanks to the seals put on them, thus increasing their powers. Of course it was also to separate them from Uzushiogakure and the nation in order to hide any link between them. Suddenly he felt a shift in the wind and sighed. How did it go, Tassa? The bandaged man named Tassa walked towards Hyson while pulling off his hood. It revealed some red hair sticking out of the bandages as it blew against the wind along with the robe that he wore. How's Naruto? Tassa asked. Hyson sighed. The operation was a success and the Sage of the 6 Paths is dead. It will also take a while until Naruto has adjusted to his new eyes. Then he smirked at Tassa. Of course you already know that, don't you? Though the bandages covered his face, anyone could tell that Tassa rolled his eyes. I've taken the tablet of the Sage of the 6 Paths and brought it here for Naruto to read when he's ready. And I've also delivered the third book to the girl. I'm ready for the next assignment, he said as he handed Hyson the said tablet. Hyson raised an eyebrow as he took it. You don't want to relax first? He asked. Tassa shook his head. No, with Naruto still recuperating from the operation it's better if I get us some allies, he said. Hyson shrugged and pulled out a set of scrolls from his pocket. Then he handed them to Tassa. What are my destinations? Tassa asked. Land of Wave, Spring, Takigakure, Sunagakure and Omegakure. I know that they all except for Aim owe Naruto a great debt in the past and obviously harbor great anger towards Konoha for celebrating his supposed death. More information about our plans is in the scrolls for them to read. And Aim, one of our relatives, is there too, so I'm hoping to win him over, Hyson said. Tassa nodded. Understood, he said as he prepared to head out. By the way, Hyson said, making Tassa stop. Why did you choose Tassa as your cover-up name? He asked. Tassa shrugged as he walked up to the edge. Sounded cool, and then disappeared without leaving a trace that he was ever there. Hyson merely smirked as he continued to look out at the village and the setting sun. Land of Wave. Tazuna, the new daimyo of the country, was inside his office looking over some reports about the trading route between the Land of Wave and the Land of Fire. Despite what the Hokage did to Sasuke, Tazuna still had a good mind to cut off all trading between Konoha and his nation for how they tarnished Naruto's name. I hope I'm not interrupting? A voice said as Tassa appeared out of thin air. Tazuna was startled and automatically fell to the floor, putting his hand to his chest. Relax, old man, I'm not here to kill you. Despite the claim, Tazuna was still wary. Okay, then what are you here for? Tassa looked around, making sure no one else was listening. I bring a message from Naruto Uzumaki. Tazuna's eyes widened at the name and automatically got up. Naruto. He's alive? Is he okay? He asked frantically. He owed a great debt to the boy for saving his village and freeing his grandson from his depressed state. Tassa shrugged. A little rough up, but he's fine. Then he pulled out one of the scrolls. Anyway, here is the message that he wanted me to give to you, he said as he handed the scroll to Tazuna. The man took the scroll and opened it, reading its contents. His eyes widened at some point but then narrowed once he finished reading. Then he looked up at Tassa. I understand, Count Wave in, he said without hesitation. Tassa nodded and prepared to leave but stopped and said, I'll be back in 4 days to hear how you've progressed. Also tell Inari that Naruto says hi. And with that he disappeared in a swirl. Incredible, Tazuna murmured before summoning his secretary. I've decided that we'll continue trading with Konoha and the Land of Fire. But from now on 2/3 of our trade will be with the Whirlpool Nation. Also give a message to certain traders and merchants of our nation. If Naruto's plan worked, then they would gain much valuable intel on Konoha with these trades. Land of Spring. Koyuki Kazuhana, daimyo of the Land of Spring, sighed as she listened to her advisors arguing with each other. One side argued to continue trading with the Land of Fire since they produced needed goods, while the other side said not to because they would praise a traitor while spitting on a hero's grave. Of course Koyuki agreed with the latter, but she felt like Naruto would never forgive her for doing this to the village he loved. But she didn't want to trade with a village that caused him so much suffering. Having trouble? Tassa asked as he materialized in front of the daimyo. The advisors all shouted in shock and for the guards to come. The guards who were there raised their weapons and pointed at Tassa. Tassa stood unfazed by this and simply looked up at Koyuki. Koyuki was the only one keeping her composure straight. "Who are you and what do you want?" she asked with authority in her voice. Tassa said nothing. Instead he reached into his robe, prompting the guards to flinch and prepare for an attack. But instead Tassa pulled out a picture and showed it to the daimyo, causing Koyuki's eyes to widen. It was the same picture that she had given to Naruto, the one she signed. This could only mean one thing. "Why, you know Naruto?" she asked with hope. Tassa nodded as he pulled out a scroll. "I'm here to deliver a message from here. I believe you will be interested in it," he said as he handed the scroll to a samurai, who in turn handed it to Koyuki. Just like with Tazuna, Tassa got the same reaction from the female daimyo. So Naruto wishes us to continue trading with Konoha to gain information on them, while at the same time trade more of our resources with the Whirlpool Nation and Uzushiogakure. When Tassa nodded, she smiled. "I like it. Please tell Naruto that the Land of Spring gladly accepts an alliance with Land of Whirlpool. And also tell him I'm glad he's okay." Tassa bowed and then disappeared, much to the surprise of everyone in the room. "Incredible," Koyuki murmured. Konoha Hokage's mansion 2 days later. Tsunade handed the scroll to Kurenai as her genin team stood behind their sensei while the shinobi council was sitting around them, since this mission required their attention as well. "So you all understand the mission. You are to head to Suna as ambassadors for Konoha to rebuild the treaty between our two villages." Then she looked at Hinata. "Hinata, since you have had more training in politics and have the stature as an heir to a noble clan, you shall be influential in reforming the relationships between them and us." Hinata nodded fiercely. "Hi Hokage-sama, I won't let you down," she said. From where he sat, Hiyashi had a small smile at his oldest daughter's newfound confidence. He knew that she had always had a crush on Naruto, but was never allowed into a relationship with him due to her position. But apparently his disappearance seemed to have pushed her to be more determined in her life, as if a way to honor the boy's memories. True, he held no hatred towards the boy, so he was thankful for this. However, unknown to him or anyone else, the reason for Hinata's confidence was because of what she read in the book. She still couldn't believe that the third lied not just about Naruto's heritage, but also to his own family that he was dead. But as she kept rereading the book, her anger towards the people of Konoha grew until she reached a decision. When she would meet the man she met 2 nights ago, she would give him her answer. Her thoughts were broken when everyone heard yelling outside the door. Before anyone could ask what was happening, the door burst open with an angry Sasuke Uchiha coming inside, followed by several if not all the members of the civilian council and then Shizune. "My apologies Tsunade-sama, but they just pushed their way through," Shizune said as she glared at the unwelcome people. Tsunade raised her hand signaling that it was fine. She had actually been waiting for this moment that Sasuke would confront her on what she did. "Oh, how much I'm going to enjoy this," she thought to herself, as Sasuke soon stood right in front of her. Holding her amusement, she held onto her serious face. "And what do you think you are doing, barging into my office during an important matter?" Sasuke activated his Sharingan and glared at Hokage, who wasn't the least bit intimidated. "I want my clan status returned to me at once. You have no right to take what is mine. Furthermore, I demand to have the scroll of sealing so I can use the jutsu in there to kill my brother. I already have the civilian council on my side," he shouted angrily. Tsunade just rolled her eyes and looked behind Sasuke at the civilian council. Sakiko, who was at the front, held a piece of paper that showed several signatures. "They don't know that the scroll is missing," she thought as she said, "Oh really? So you expect the approval of the civilian council to help you in Shinobi's affairs?" she asked with a smug look. Sasuke blinked for a few seconds before slamming his fist on the desk again. "Yes, now give me back what is mine," he shouted. Tsunade sighed and snapped her fingers. At once 2 Anbu ninjas appeared on both sides of Sasuke. "Anbu, Take Sasuke Uchiha away and restrain him in his house since he is now under house arrest. Also Sasuke, all your clan's belongings have already been used to pay for the damages done during the invasion and to help replenish the academy's curriculum. Furthermore, it's non-negotiable as it was the only way for both Konoha and the Fire Country to regain their allies. Oh, how she was enjoying this. She did, however, kept the part on finding the hidden meeting room between herself, Shizune and Jiraiya, the latter inspecting what was kept in there. Sasuke's eyes widened and then he tried to lunge at the Hokage, only to be smacked hard in the back of the neck and was soon knocked out. Everyone was shocked to see that it was Hinata who did the deed, her Byakugan activated. She then deactivated her Kekkei Genkei and bowed at Tsunade. Forgive me Hokage-sama, but he clearly made a hostile act towards you and as such I felt that it was necessary to subdue him before he could do such things. She said as the two Anbus picked up the knocked out Uchiha and dragged him out of the room. Tsunade waved her hand. No problem Hinata, you did the right thing. Now your team is dismissed to begin their mission Kurenai. As the two Genin, Chunin, remember Kiba along with the rest of the retrieval team were promoted to Chunin, and Jonin bowed their heads and left. Tsunade glared at the civilian council who were now very nervous. Is there a reason why you people got yourselves involved with shinobi business, again? While the other civilians got nervous, Sakiko Haruno stood her ground. We did so because what you did could have greatly cost us the Sharingan since Sasuke Uchiha is the last loyal member in Konoha. She said, which was replied with several snorts from some of the clan heads. Tsunade raised an eyebrow before speaking. Loyalty I highly doubt, but in either case hand me that paper. When Sakiko made no move to do so, Tsunade sent a look to Shikaku who nodded. Before anyone could react, Sakiko found herself paralyzed as Shikaku trapped her with his shadow possession. Unable to control her own movements, she handed the paper to Tsunade who studied it carefully. Surprisingly, only half of the civilian council's names were on it. Guess some of these people do have brains after all. She thought as she snapped her fingers and several more Anbu appeared. I want everyone whose name is on this paper arrested and taken to Ibiki. As for the rest of them, let them know that I'll let them off for now. The Anbu nodded and began to escort the civilians out of the room. With that done, Tsunade turned towards the Shinobi Council. Now that's over with, maybe now we can really discuss Konoha's future without idiots trying to ruin it. This earned some chuckles from the clan heads, but stopped when Tsunade frowned. Anyway, while the peace talks with Suna will hopefully be successful, Takigakure has fully cancelled their treaty with us. Though I received this a day ago from their leader, the Takikage, A.N. I think I said that right, saying that while we do not have an alliance with them, we are still allowed into their country during missions as long as it doesn't interfere with their work on country's economy. The clan heads nodded and then Sume raised her hand. What about Naruto? I mean, I know it's been 3 months since he was taken, but Jiraiya-sama must have some inkling about his whereabouts. Tsunade shook her head. No, we still have no clue where those people take him. She said sadly. Right now I'm more concerned about the threat that they delivered. Choza raised an eyebrow. You really think that they'll attack Konoha in 5 years like they said? He asked. Tsunade sighed. I don't know what to expect. These past few weeks have been hell and I don't feel like dealing with any more problems. But speaking of Naruto, she said as she pulled out a file. I want you all to read this. She said as she handed it first to Shikaku. The Nara clan head read the file and then his eyes widened in shock. Are you telling us that Naruto is the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki? He asked, earning shocked reactions from the rest of the clan heads. Tsunade nodded. Yes, that was the reason why Minato chose Naruto to be the next container for the Kyuubi, because he was his son. You don't honestly expect Minato to ask any other parent to accept that burden, do you? The clan heads had to admit that she had a point. Anyway, I was thinking of revealing Naruto's lineage since the civilian council and elders constantly refused to print Naruto's name on the memorial stone. I'm bringing this up with all of you because this is more in the shinobi affair than civilian, so I'll ask this once: if we should reveal Naruto's lineage to the public? The clan heads all talked to one another. They never held any contempt towards Naruto during his time of growing up and they knew his parents very well too. Furthermore, it would be a good way of paying their respects to the deceased fourth Hokage. Finally stop talking. All the clan heads turned towards Tsunade and they all nodded. Tsunade smiled. Very good, so this afternoon an announcement will be made about Naruto's lineage. I can't wait to see the looks on the civilian council. She thought to herself. Sanagakure, Case Cage Mansion. Matsuri, Gaara's first and currently only student, plopped another large pile of paper on the desk in front of Gaara. Sorry Gaara-sama, but these are from the civilian council of Konoha, wanting permission to have a 30% in profit with the goods we trade with them. Yours and the Wind Daimyo's signatures are required for these. Gaara sighed, wondering why he took this job. Though that just reminded him of Naruto, which only made him realize that he was doing this to be respected as well as for the good of the village. But he was not going to deal with demands of the Konoha civilians, the same ones that made Naruto's life a living hell and dishonored his memory. You might as well return this documents to them, blank Matsuri-chan. Neither I or the daimyo plan to agree to anything those greedy people ask for. Matsuri smiled at her case cage's defiance and bowed. Hi Gaara-sama. And she took the papers and headed out of the office. Gaara watched her go, thinking about something, and then said, Matsuri-chan. The said girl stopped and turned to stare at the boy. After I'm done with all this would you like to get something to eat with me? If possible. Matsuri's jaw dropped to the ground, but she regained her composure. I would be honored Gaara-sama. Thank you. And with that she left with a skip to her walk. Gaara let out a sigh and continued with some other paperwork, glad that he was on the road that to making friends like Naruto had said. But just as he was about to start with his work he suddenly felt a presence nearby. Moving quickly he willed his sand to the right, and nearly collided with Tassa. But the sand went right through him without doing any damage to his body. You are indeed skilled, young Case Cage, Tassa said as he walked forward while Gaara just stared at him. I can tell that you are having conflicted feelings of what to do with me. Probably because of that damn shukaku inside you. Gaara raised an eyebrow, slowly willed the sand to surround the intruder. Who are you? He asked. Tassa pulled out a scroll. I've come to deliver a message from Naruto Uzumaki to you but he was cut off as the sand wrapped around him tightly, while a small amount of sand took away the scroll and brought it over to Gaara. The case cage eyed him carefully as he opened the scroll and read it. What he saw made his eyes widened in shock but then regained himself. He looked up at Tassa. Does Naruto really plan to start a war? He asked. Tassa shrugged, though it was hard to do because of the sand. For peace, yes. Now the question's if you will side with us? Suna will profit more from Uzu than from any other country due to our rich resources. Gaara thought for a moment. It was true. Gaara read that the land of the Whirlpool was a much richer country than any others out there, and trading them could boost the village's economy back up greatly. And besides, what did he owe Konoha? Nothing. He owed everything to Naruto, and if Naruto now supported Uzushigakure, then so would Gaara. Very well, I shall accept an alliance between our villages and shall inform the Wind Daimyo of this plan. Tassa nodded and then disappeared, surprising Gaara that he could have done that all along. A Megacure. On top of the highest tower in the village, hidden in the rain, sitting on a metal tongue, was Pain, god of Megacure and leader of Akatsuki. He would always be sitting there, with the rain going down his body as he watched the village. Unless he had other matters to attend to, then this is where he would be while Konan, his partner and only friend, assisted him with running the village. Currently he was thinking of what to do now that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was missing and Zetsu was still looking for his location. But for now they shall focus on finding the others. Nice view you got here, a voice said. Pain turned around and was shocked to see a bandaged man wearing a robe inside the building, with a beat-up Konan in his hand. Moving quickly, Pain raised his hand and pulled Konan over to him, getting her out of the man's grasp. Tassa raised an eyebrow. Very impressive, Pain, you use those eyes of yours well. Konan looked up at Pain, coughing a little. Forgive me, he got the drop on me. Pain didn't say anything, just stared at the newcomer while helping Konan to her feet. Who are you? Pain asked. It's clear that you know about the Rinnegan, but because of that I cannot allow you to live. Raising his hand he said, Shinrai Tensai, and suddenly he fired a powerful gravitational blast towards Tassa, hoping to send him flying. But instead Tassa held his ground easily, much to Pain and Konan's shock. Not bad, Tassa said as he brushed his sleeve. Not impressive as the original, but not bad. Original? Pain thought to himself, but before he could do anything, Tassa appeared right in front of him, startling the god. I would like to speak to the real you, Nagato Uzumaki. Tasa said in a dark voice. Pain was somewhat surprised that this man knew his real name. But what really shocked him that he called him an Uzumaki. Just like the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. He thought to himself before regaining his composure. Very well, I shall take you to the real me, he said. Conan's eyes widened, but was soon silenced when Nagato, or the Diva Path, raised his hand. Then the path began to lead Tasa to meet the real Nagato. An hour later, the three arrived into a dark room, where the only source of light was a lamp hanging from above. Tasa scanned the area for any traps when he looked in front of him and saw something. So this is the real you. Standing before him was a man, strapped into a machine. The man had pale skin and red hair, along with the Rinnegan. He was so skinny that you could practically see his bones. Sticking out of his back were several large black rods of some sort. This was the real Nagato, who looked down at Tasa while Conan stood to his left and the Diva Path stood to this right. Now, why did you call me an Uzumaki? Nagato asked in an authority-like voice. Tasa sighed. The truth is that you are part of the Uzumaki clan, a clan from Uzu-Shiogakure in the land of Whirlpool. I would have assumed that your parents told you before they died. He realized that he hit a touchy subject when he felt a huge amount of killer intent coming out of Nagato. You know about my parents? Nagato asked as he calmed down. Tasa shrugged. Not personally, but the organization I work for, Shadenrike, was founded by the Uzumaki clan during the Third Shinobi War in order to bring forth the vision that the Rikudo Sennin, the founder of the clan, wanted. As we speak, our leader is now being implanted with the original Rinnegan. And seeing how you're a relative, he wishes to propose an alliance between Akatsuki and the Schattenreich. Tasa said. Nagato narrowed his eyes, not sure if this was true or not. There was only one way to tell. How do you intend to create peace? For me to bring pain brings peace. What is your way? Tasa smirked underneath his bandages. Love and power. We plan to use our newfound abilities to create a world where people have a home. A place where they can be loved and loved too. We agree that your plan is a good one, but a peace with pain will not end the suffering. Wouldn't you rather want to bring love to the world with power, to make sure no child loses their parents in any sort of tragedy? Tasa knew that the last line would get Nagato's attention and make him conflict over his own ideals. To help him decide, Tasa said, also, what if I told you that the man calling himself Madara Uchiha isn't who he really says he is? This caught Nagato and Conan's attention as they both stared at Tasa. Finally Nagato asked, prove to me that you really intend to set out to bring the Sage of the Six Paths dream. Tasa nodded, a reasonable question. Slowly Tasa pulled up the bandages covering his eyes and revealed a part of his face to the two Akatsuki members. What they saw shocked them to the fullest, even making their mouths open. That's, Conan said, unable to believe what she was looking at. Soon Tasa covered his eyes again and took out a scroll. These are what we plan to do. He said. He held it out for Conan to take. The blue-haired woman looked at Nagato, who merely nodded. Slowly she walked over to Tasa and took the scroll. I will come back in 3 days and wait for your answer. And remember, don't tell anyone. And with that he disappeared into thin air, leaving behind a still shocked Nagato. Uzu-Shiogakure Azukage Mansion and Shadenrike HQ. Tasa reappeared inside the Azukage's office, throne room. Already there was Hysen Uzumaki. With them were some members of the Salbe Meisters, the Anbu of the organization, and Uzu-Shiogakure and the Seinfeld, Death Hunters, the hunter nin of the village. Then there were the Schwartz, Swords, a special division of veteran ninjas that master the arts of Kenjutsu, and finally there was Naruto, who was wearing a black kimono with an orange version of the whirlpool symbol on the back while blindfolds covered his eyes since his new eyes weren't yet ready. He was also a little bit taller and more built, the right size someone his age should be at. Well, how did it go? Hysen asked. Tasa bowed before him and Naruto. It all went great, my lords. The Land of Spring, Wave and Tea have agreed to the plan and have now given us their support in secret. As you commanded, it shall be made public in 5 years. Tokigakure has also agreed to the plan but is still deciding about sending their Jinchuriki over here for protection. Suna has fully committed theirs and the country's resources with us and is eager to trade. But due to the plan, will not made public until in 5 years. Naruto nodded and, despite being blindfolded, looked at his uncle. We should continue on rebuilding the country and the village. We'll send out our best to complete tough missions as long as they avoid Akatsuki. I also want to begin gathering data on Kumo and Iwa for our eventual invasion of their villages. We should also send some ninjas to support the resistance against the current Mizukage. That way we can gain their support in the future war we will unleash. Lastly, uncle, I believe my eyes are almost fully ready, he said in an authority voice. Hyson bowed, proud of the progress his nephew has made in such a short time. As you wish, your majesty. It had been a week since the transfer and Hyson believed that Naruto was ready to begin his training of the Schattenreich's power. From what Naruto learned, the members had used advanced seals on their bodies to readjust the chakra inside them. The seals also allowed them to absorb natural chakra with ease without worrying of turning into stone. However, that was as much as Naruto knew right now, which is why his uncle was going to show him more. As Hyson guided Naruto to the training room, Naruto took the opportunity to check out the mansion with his new eyes. It was kind of like the Hokage mansion except the walls were orange with black and blue markings and swirling circles. One part of the hall had pictures of various important figures, such as past Azukages, daimyos of the nation, heroes of the village and clan leaders. However, what caught Naruto's attention was the picture of a 9-year-old girl with a round-shaped head, long beautiful red hair, and blue eyes. Besides her was a boy with spiky red hair, blue eyes and tan skin, and finally behind them, with both of his hands on each of their heads, was a man with red hair, mustache and beard. He wore a cage hat with the kanji of whirlpool. Naruto was so lost in it that he hadn't realized he stopped walking until Hyson came over to him, looking at the picture. When Hyson saw it he smiled. You probably know who that is, don't you? He asked. Naruto looked at him then back at the picture for a few seconds. Then he replied, is that my mom? He asked. Hyson nodded. Along with myself and our father Sancho Uzumaki, the Azukage before me. He said with a smile, reminiscing on old times. This was when we first entered the academy in Uzushiogakure. We were both so excited into becoming ninja, and Dad was so happy for us, we even forgotten about the Third Shinobi War. However, when the war did come, Kushina had to be sent to Konoha for protection, since she had Kuruma-san in her at the time. Naruto heard the sadness in his voice and looked up at him. What happened to you and Gramps? He asked. Hyson sighed as he rubbed his head. Due to Iwa and Kumo being so close to Uzu, and since I was a senior, I became a genin a year early and was assigned to guarding the village. However, the enemy managed to overwhelm our defenses and breach the village, killing many. Dad managed to kill 100 Kumo shinobi, before being impaled multiple times. But thanks to him many of us managed to make it to the safe rooms and wait out the invasion. From what I remembered, he also wounded the third Tsuchikage, which I think gave him back problems to boot. He chuckled as Naruto did as well. Come on, remember we're here for training. Naruto nodded and a few minutes later the two arrived in front of a door. Naruto noticed that it had the same seals as the one that was around the room that the Sage of the Six Paths was in. Hey, wait, is this room? Naruto was about to ask when Hyson opened the door. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw that the room was much bigger on the inside. In fact, there was a large city inside of it, going on for miles non-stop. Hyson smirked at Naruto's reaction. Yep, this room also leads to another dimension, which I call the Rough Zone, a dimension designed to be the ultimate training room, capable of taking any beating that happens. You see all the rubble? Hyson asked as Naruto looked around. Indeed, the city looked like a massive storm, and this had hit it was the aftermath. This is the result of countless years of training from different eras of Uzushiogakyo's finest. Now then, follow me and we shall begin the training. And with that he headed deeper into the city, quickly followed by Naruto. When they were far enough, Hyson signaled them to stop. Okay Naruto, first I have a question. You know what the 5 main element affinities are, correct? Hyson asked. Naruto nodded. Fire, wind, lightning, earth and water, right? He said. Hyson nodded. Correct, and you know there are sub-elements too, right? Naruto nodded, earning a smirk from Hyson. Well, watch this, he said as he raised his hand and pointed at a building. Kogeki, frozen rage, and then he fired several spears of ice from his fingertips at the building. When they collided with it, they froze a small section of the building. Naruto's eyes went wide as he saw his uncle use the ice element. Hyson smirked. We call this new style Majijutsu. Basically it's jutsu but doesn't require hand seals to use these attacks. Furthermore, we are not limited to the elements that we can use with normal ninjutsu. We made this possible by using special seals called Kamisama no Genso onto our chests, thus giving us more elements to us. Then he walked over towards Naruto before continuing. There are 6 different types of Majijutsu forms: Kogeki, attack; Yogo, defend; Toraku, track; Hosoku, capture; Toku, talk; and Fuin, seal. You can use different elements for all 6 forms of Majijutsu. However, I'm also going to teach you how to Sage style. Naruto cocked his head. Sage style? He asked. Hinso nodded. It's like Sage art but without requiring a summoning contract in order to make it work. Also, Sage art requires you to be still while gathering natural chakra. However, with Sage style all you have to do is concentrate the surround natural chakra into a part of your body, allowing you to use a new level of Majijutsu without having to use the 6 forms of it. Observe. Hyson held out his right hand for Naruto to look at. A few seconds later chakra began to surround it and soon formed into a shuriken, except it was blue. This spell is the simplest and easiest of the many Sage-style techniques. It is called Geschoss, German for energy projectile. It's like concentrating elemental chakra into a weapon, except this is formed from natural chakra and can do this as well. Then he threw the shuriken like you normally would, except when it hit the building it let out a small explosion. Naruto had a stunned look on his face and then a smile appeared. Awesome, so you're going to teach me all this? Hyson nodded, a smirk on his face. Yep, and with your naturally large chakra it shouldn't be that hard to learn. Also, you might even learn some of the Sage-style spells that even I don't know. Then he got serious. Just to warn you, I don't go easy on my students, so don't expect for this to be an easy training. You ready? Naruto smirked, a determined look in his eyes. Bring it on, was all he said. Konoha. Tasa sat on top of the 4th Hokage's head on the Hokage monument, staring at Konoha. To think that this village was founded under the belief of the Will of Fire. Tasa said to himself, I wonder what you would think of it now, Harishima. How much the people have strained from the Will of Fire. Would you be enraged as Naruto is now, or would you try to fix it? It had been a day since Naruto's lineage had been revealed to the village. There were mixed feelings to it all. Some people, mostly ninjas, were ashamed of having tormented the 4th son along with a few civilians. However, the civilian council, especially Sakiko Haruno, and most of the civilians, refused to believe that the demon brat was the son of their greatest hero. This had brought many conflicts in the village streets, resulting in Anbu to come in and break the fights off. Tasa had to admit that it was ironic of what was happening and how the other nations were going to take it as well. Tasa, remembering why he came here, sighed and got up and stretched his arm. Damn, these arms are stiff. I need to get some new ones. He thought to himself as he looked down below. Well, guess I better deliver the message. He said to himself as he jumped off the monument. As he fell he spun around and faced the Sandame's face. Taking a closer look, you could see the hundreds of explosive tags on it. Time for a good taste of Uzumaki explosion tags. Tasa thought as he formed the correct hand sign. Soon the Sandame's head blew up, sending debris everywhere. Tsunade heard the noise from her office and barely had enough time to ask herself what was going on when rocks began to hit the mansion's roof, along with several other areas of the village, causing the people to panic and run to avoid being crushed by the debris. Shizune came running into the office. Tsunade-sama, are you alright? She asked as several Anbu appeared and formed a defensive circle around the Hokage. I'm fine, she said as she headed out of the mansion. But what was that noise? She asked. Shizune ran up beside her while holding Taunton in her arms. One part of the Hokage's monument blew up, sending debris everywhere. Medical teams are heading out to help any wounded. Hokage-sama, up there, an Anbu shouted. Everyone looked up and saw Tasa standing on top of the Hokage mansion while looking down at them. The first thing he said was, "Yo." Suddenly Tsunade was jumping into the air and was right in front of him, startling Tasa. She's pretty fast, he thought as Tsunade thrust her fist towards him. However, the attack just went right through him, but Tasa could still feel the chakra in it. If that hit me, then I would have to switch to a new body. He thought again as he jumped forward over Tsunade and landed on top of another building. Getting over her shock that her attack missed, she shouted, "Capture him. I want to know who he is and who he works for." She ordered the Anbu. The Anbu all nodded and leapt after Tasa, who merely gave them the finger and headed towards the village gate. One of the Anbu began to form hand signs. Futon. Wind cutter jutsu. He shouted. Then a burst of wind headed straight towards him. But instead of hitting him, they dispersed upon impact, doing no damage to Tassa whatsoever. How? The Anbu said. You have to do better than that to catch me. Tassa shouted as he continued towards the gate. Suddenly a wall of wood came up before Tassa, surprising him, and he nearly collided with it. Wood release, how? Tassa thought as he turned around. Good work, Tenzo, Yugao said as she pulled out her katana and prepared to strike Tassa. But before she could, a wall appeared before her, stopping her attack. What? But he didn't perform any hand signs. The cat-masked Anbu thought while Tassa ran around the wood wall. Shit, don't let him escape, Yugao shouted. Ha, you guys couldn't catch a cold, Tassa said as he kept running. Then heard someone shout, Rasengan. He looked up and saw Jiraiya coming down on him with the said attack. Shit, Tassa cried before jumping to the side and dodged the attack. The attack hit the ground and left a good-sized crater into it. If you're chasing after me, then I better fight back, Tassa said as he revealed a small blade attached to his arm and charged. Jiraiya managed to dodge the attack and then tried to land a punch into Tassa's face. But instead his fist went right through him, shocking the Toad Sage. Not going to work, Tassa said as he swung his blade towards Jiraiya. But just as it was about to hit him, Tsunade came down onto Tassa with her leg up. Damn it, Tassa said as he blinked his eyes and was suddenly a couple of inches where he once was, causing Tsunade's attack to hit the ground, leaving another crater. This shocked both Sannin as they looked at the bandaged man. How is avoiding our attacks? Tsunade asked Jiraiya. No clue, Jiraiya said as he took a stance alongside Tsunade. Tassa just looked at both of them, and then cracked his head. Well, this has been fun, but I think it's time I left. So farewell, Rasengan, someone shouted, and suddenly a blur struck Tassa on his left. Shit, I was still Supsunjunjo, Order of Space, mode, and didn't have enough time to switch to Sakakujunjo, Order of Illusions, mode. Tassa thought as the attack threw him into a building's wall. Tsunade, Jiraiya and the arriving Anbu were shocked to see someone's attack was able to hit him, but more importantly what the attack was. When the smoke cleared, they finally saw the man and their eyes widened. He was an adult, perhaps in his early to mid-30s. He had spiky blonde hair and deep blue eyes. His skin was also very tan as well, and he was quite handsome. He wore a Konoha headband and Jonin vest underneath a white short-sleeve coat with red flames at the bottom. Minato? Jiraiya asked, shocked of seeing his student standing before him, let alone alive and well, maybe not well. If you got a closer look, you could tell that Minato was exhausted. As for seeing him, everyone there was shocked to see the deceased fourth Hokage. However, Minato's eyes were only on Tassa, glaring at him. Tassa got up and out of the hole he made and brushed himself off. Well, didn't expect to see you here so soon, Minato. Though you aren't called the Yellow Flash for nothing. However, if you're here, then that means. Tassa was cut off when suddenly yellow chains appeared out of the ground and wrapped themselves around him, squeezing tightly. Shit, was all Tassa said as he looked to his left. Standing there was a beautiful woman with long red hair and light blue eyes. She had a round face but nevertheless was very beautiful. She wore plain white shirt, long brown ninja pants. Tsunade's eyes widened as she looked at the woman. Kushina? She said in shock that Naruto's mother was still alive as well. But the said woman ignored her and just glared at Tassa like Minato was doing. Finally Kushina said, almost growled, "Where is my son? Where is Naruto?" When Tsunade and Jiraiya heard this, they turned towards Tassa. So you're with them as well? The ones who took Naruto 3 months ago. Tsunade yelled, forming her hands into fists while more ninjas appeared around them. All of them shocked to see Minato alive, especially Kakashi. Minato-sensei, he cried. Minato took a quick glance at him and gave a nod before turning back at Tassa. Now answer my wife, you bastard. Where is Naruto? Tassa chuckled. Sorry, but I'm not obligated to tell you. Besides, even if I did, do you think you would be able to get him back? More importantly, do you think he would want to come back, to a village that wronged him for 12 years? Tassa asked. Those words made Minato raise an eyebrow. What do you mean wronged? He asked. Tassa smirked underneath his bandages. What were you expecting the people to do after you sealed the fox inside your own son? Worship him as a hero perhaps? Then his voice became serious. Well, you're wrong, and you can thank the civilian council, elders and the third for that. It was because of them that Naruto grew up here alone, unloved, hated, tormented and literally beaten on his birthday. Did you know that the elders refused to let his lineage be revealed and that the third gave him Kushina's surname? Kushina's eyes widened at this as well. Well, of course not, you were dead. Tassa said before continuing. Hell, they wanted to kill him even when he brought the last Uchiha. And they would have if our people hadn't taken him. Also, Jiraiya never came here to see him all those years despite you two making him Naruto's godfather. The same goes for your student Kakashi, who trained Sasuke more rather than Naruto. Minato glared at both Jiraiya and Kakashi, making the two flinch at the look. Kushina felt like letting this guy go and beat the crap out of everyone for what they did to her son apparently. But before she could decide anything, Tassa began to fade. His last words were, later. And he suddenly disappeared and the chains dropped and retracted back to Kushina, who collapsed from being so exhausted from whatever event happened to her. Kushina, Tsunade cried as she ran towards her to check if she was injured. Minato also looked like he was about to collapse but was caught by Jiraiya and Kakashi. Before the fourth Hokage passed out, he gave one last glare to both of them, making them wonder how this was going to all turn out. A few hours later, the debris had been moved and all those wounded by the attack were brought to the hospital. Tsunade called a meeting of the clan heads, elders and civilian council along with Jiraiya. The last two were Minato and Kushina, who were sitting to the side next to the Hokage's seat. They both had a depressed look on them while now and then they would glare at the others, making them flinch. At first people didn't believe it was really them, but when Jiraiya looked at the Toad contract and saw that Minato's name was read again, it only proved that the fourth Hokage was alive and standing before them. Feeling the tension that those two were giving off, Tsunade cleared her throat, catching everyone's attention. Well, first I guess I would like to welcome back Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, though I would like some answers onto how you two are. Namikaze, Sakiko shouted, making the people wince at her loud voice. You telling me Minato-kun married this outcast? She was seething that her crush had actually married someone else besides her. However, her anger turned into fear when the two said people let out a massive killer intent towards everyone, not just her. No one had ever felt such anger ever. Finally Minato spoke, his voice dark and deep. Is it true what that man said about my son? That you people did so many horrible things to him? He asked. No one replied, instead they turned their heads in shame, unable to look at the couple. Finally a fat civilian had the nerve to yell. Minato-sama, with all due respect, if you must know, the demon had already devoured the boy's soul, so… He was silenced when Kushina landed a punch to his face, knocking him out. Everyone was so shocked that she moved so fast. When she turned to face the rest of them, they flinched at the angry look on her face. What do you bastards know about sealing? Nothing, so you have no right to say such things. I should kill you all for what you did to my son. She cried. Kushina, Tsunade yelled, catching her attention. Please, just sit down. Why should I? Kushina asked defiantly as her hair began to go up into the air, making many nervous. Because, Tsunade said, doing her best not to cry. You're not the only one who is angry at what these people did to your son. She said the last part softly. Kushina calmed down a bit, seeing the upset look on the older woman's face, and quietly sat back down next to her husband. Now Minato, Kushina, I assure you that the civilian council shall be paid via their accounts for the abuse they have done to your son. She glared at the said people before they could reply. But first I want you to tell us, what happened to you guys? We had all thought that you were both dead, Tsunade said. Minato sighed, trying to figure out where to start. Well, to be honest, we did die. But during the sealing, both of us sealed a part of us into Naruto as a safety measure in case the Kyuubi's seal was released. Are you telling me that the demon is free? Kaharu asked, worried that it might come back to the village and finished what it started. Minato shook his head. No, it's still inside Naruto from what I remembered. But when the seal was being undone and I interfered, there was a man inside Naruto who attacked Kushina and myself. I don't know how, but somehow he sent us both out of the Shinigami and out of Naruto into the living world. I had no clue where we were or where Naruto was, but when I saw people coming towards us, I grabbed Kushina and used an old seal I created on a tree and teleported us out of there. We must have been out for a few days before making our way towards the village where we saw the Anbu chasing after that bandaged man. We figured he might know where Naruto was, so, well, you know. He said sadly. Were you able to figure out who the man was? Danzo asked curiously. Minato shook his head. No, I couldn't get a good look at him before he sent us to this world. And that's all I can say right now. Tsunade sighed. Well, for now we'll leave things as it is for now, seeing how the man escaped. Minato, I know this is a bad time to ask, but since you're back, would you like to take back the seat of Hokage? She knew she really shouldn't be asking, but people would expect him to since he was hailed as one of the greatest to ever come. Minato sighed before saying, I'm sorry, but I can't. I don't want to lead people who would dishonor my last wish and treating my son so badly. Everyone flinched at that last part. I will, however, continue serving as a shinobi of Konoha for your sake and no one else's. He said the last part, glaring at Jiraiya, who looked away in shame. He knew he screwed up big time for not being there for Naruto, his godson. Kushina looked up and said, and so shall I, though I really don't feel like I have any loyalty to this village anymore. She said as she glared at Sakiko. Also, I would like that the Uzushiogakure symbol crest that everyone wears to be retired as well. Wearing it is an insult for all the harm you have done to my son, as well as you have all forgotten its importance. The clan heads were shocked by this and began pleading with her not to do it. Tsunade, however, saw it coming, seeing how wearing it was an insult to the Uzumaki clan. Tsunade made a noise, getting everyone's attention. I approve it and shall send word to the Fire Daimyo about it. And speaking of, meaning all genin who graduated this year shall be sent back to the academy for reevaluating to see if they are worthy of becoming shinobi. To say everyone took that well was an understatement, though the clan heads were a bit more understanding of it, seeing how much of the academy's standards had been lowered due to the civilian councils interfering. You can't do that. Our children have worked hard to become shinobi of Konoha. Sakiko shrieked. Tsunade glared at the woman. Yes, by making the graduation easier for them to pass. Honestly, I would expect at least half of this year's new generation to die on their first missions with all the teachings that they missed out at the academy. So you should be grateful that I'm sending them back to be re-educated in the village's history and how to be true ninjas. She said the last part, letting out a lot of killer intent towards the civilian council, who all shivered. Now that is over, Minato, Kushina, I would like you two to stay so I can fill you in on a few things that happened over the past few years. And then she glared at Jiraiya. And just them, making Jiraiya flinch. Minato and Kushina nodded while everyone got up and left, being escorted by Shizune. As the couple sat in front of Tsunade, the fifth Hokage took a deep breath. Now, where to begin? Elsewhere in the Fire Country, Team 8 had finished their mission at Suna and was now returning to Konoha, unaware of what has happened in the said village. Currently their thoughts were on making a decent campsite. Man, that had to be the most boring mission ever. Kiba said as he started pitching up his tent. Akamaru barked in agreement with his partner. Kurenai sighed at her student's complaint. Boring or not, Kiba, re-establishing the relations between our villages was important and we should be grateful that nothing went wrong whatsoever. Then she turned towards Hinata. Hinata, since you've finished your tent already, will you go and collect some firewood and water? Hi, Kurenai-sensei, the Hyuga girl said before picking up the water bucket and dashing off into the forest while the rest of her team worked on finishing up camp. A few minutes later, Hinata was at a stream she found and was about to collect water when she heard a noise from behind. Moving quickly, she spun around and saw Tassa standing before her. Hinata had to back away a little bit due to the shock of seeing him. But she noticed that Tassa's left arm was missing because his sleeve was blowing in the wind. You, she said, though not loud enough for others to hear her. Tassa walked up to her, not even stopping when she got into her clan's stance. I've come to hear your answer, Hinata Hyuga. The time for sides is now and everyone must choose in order to bring peace to this world. And now I've come for your decision. Hinata got out of her stance and continued staring at Tassa. She had long thought hard on this, and so, after pausing, she said, I will do it. I will act as a spy for Naruto. Tassa cocked his head. I don't think he meant for you to do it like that, but at least I know you're on our side. He said as he pulled something out of his pocket. It was a piece of paper with symbols on it, pointing in all directions. As he gave it to Hinata, Tassa said, this seal will guide to you exchange points. There you shall leave a scroll filled with any useful information about Konoha. When the time comes for you to leave, I shall personally come to you and let you know. And remember, this is all for peace. And with that he left, leaving Hinata to her thoughts. Life had changed drastically over the next 5 years since Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze had returned. They bought a large estate in one of the more secluded places in Konoha, saying that they don't want to live near those who abused their son. Even when they went to the markets and people tried to praise them, all the people got in return were harsh glares and massive killer intents directed at them. This made many flinch that the hero of Konoha now despised the very village that he had sworn to protect. Kushina had actually spent the first few days hunting down the civilian council members and several important ninjas who had hurt Naruto over the years and sent them to the hospital. No matter where they went, they would have glares directed at anyone who tried to have a conversation with them, minus Tsunade and Shizune. They even ignored Jiraiya, since he did nothing to help Naruto when he was just a child. Kushina had also bought a little shrine for Naruto, praying one day he would return and they could be a family again. The remaining rookies began to change a lot, some good some bad. They were all shocked to learn that not only was the fourth Hokage was alive, but that he was Naruto's father. Actually, once they got a good look at him they could see the resemblance. By now all of them were Chunin now except for Neji and Sasuke, the former a Jonin and the latter still a Genin. Hinata had begun to distance herself from the rest of her team and clan, much to everyone's curiosity. She was actually the only one that seemed to be on good terms with Kushina. The two had met when Kushina was heading out to buy some food at the market when she bumped into Hinata. Kushina had heard the rumors about the Hyuga heiress having a crush on her son and so was curious. The two talked for a while and Kushina saw a little bit of herself in Hinata, excluding the shyness part. The two of them hit it off from there and Hinata would visit her and Minato often. Kushina had begun to see her as a daughter that she never had and was happy to know that at least one person cared for her son. Hinata even learned a new type of jutsu from training with Minato, much to the shock of everyone. Ino and Sakura had begun taking medical lessons from Tsunade since they desired to better help their teams. Team 7 even got a new member in place of Naruto, a pale boy named Sai. With Hinata distancing herself from them, Team 8 had been disbanded, much to Kurenai's displeasure. Sasuke however remained the same, though he lessened up a bit from having a superior complex. Despite that, the civilian council still fought to have him do the CRA so the village could have more Sharingans. Both the Fire Daimyo and Tsunade constantly rebuffed this along with the clan heads. In fact, it got so out of hand once that Tsunade finally decided to disband the civilian council for good. Especially when she found out that during her sensei's rule they were using her clan's money for their own benefits and for the Kyuubi festival. Speaking of which, the Kyuubi festival had been cancelled for good during the first year of when Kushina and Minato came back. The civilian council thought that they would be pleased that they were holding a festival in Minato's honor for defeating the Kyuubi. That wasn't the case because when the couple arrived there the first thing they did was go rampant, tearing down stands, rides and even destroyed the parade. It took the entire Anbu force and some from Root just to restrain them. When asked why they did it, it was because that festival was a disgrace and an insult to their son, and they demanded that it should be shut down, which Tsunade agreed with. Today however was now different. No one could shake the feeling that something bad was going to happen this day. For the council, they knew that this year was the year that the Shadenrike were going to destroy Konoha. Everyone was thinking that it was just an empty threat, but for some they knew that those people weren't the kind to make such threats. Something big was going to happen this year. However, Tsunade had other things to worry about, like Konoha's status a hidden village. It was embarrassing enough that they had to remove the orange swirl of Uzushiogakure off of their vests, but they had barely been getting any missions lately. Sure, they got back most of the alliances that they had lost, though why she had no clue, but she wasn't complaining. However, they weren't trading much of their resources as they used to. Probably because they still hate us for what the civilian council did to Naruto. Tsunade thought to herself. Now another matter had come up, which is why she summoned 4 teams and 2 separate Jonins. They included Minato, Kushina, who had a katana strapped to her back, Team Kakashi, with their new member Sai, Team Guy, Team Asuma and Team Kurenai. Thank you all for coming so quickly, Tsunade said. The others just gave nods, but Tsunade noticed Kushina would now and then glare at Sasuke and Kakashi. Ever since learning about how Kakashi gave Sasuke more attention than his sensei's own son, Minato and Kushina had refused to even acknowledge him, and Kushina was disgusted that her friend Makoto did nothing to help her son. Sighing, Tsunade continued, "It has come to our attention that the civil war in Kirigakure has ended in the rebels' victory, about 2 years ago." This shocked everyone. Almost no word had come from the village hidden in the mist, so no one had any clue of what was happening there. However, for information like this to have such late a time made them wonder what kind of people might have been able to take down the fourth Mizukage since he possessed the three tails. "Do we have any information on what happened?" Minato asked. Tsunade shook her head. "All we know is that the resistance received help from another hidden village who we currently know nothing about. However, a small but significant group of ninjas loyal to the late 4th Mizukage survived and are being led by a former hunter nin named Yumi. They were last spotted entering the Fire Country, and since Kiri can't go after them due to the damage done to their economy and village, the current Mizukage has asked us to apprehend the leader of this group and any other important members. If we succeed, then we may work out a treaty between our countries that would greatly benefit us." "Do we know how many ninjas are in this group?" Kakashi asked. Tsunade shrugged. "From the report, at least 50 ninjas between Chunin and Jonin level." Some of the rookies gasped at the numbers. "I would send more teams, but with the economy how it is and with so many on missions, it's impossible for me to do that. Also, I'm placing Minato in charge of the mission." Minato nodded and turned towards the others. "Meet at the gate in 3 hours," he said while everyone nodded. As everyone was leaving, Tsunade told Minato and Kushina to stay for a moment. "Now I have 2 things to tell you. 1. I plan on withdrawing as Hokage, and Kushina, I want you to be my successor." Kushina's eyes widened and then narrowed, a frown on her face. "If you think I'm going to, just hear me out," Tsunade yelled, startling both of them. She sighed before speaking. "The only reason why I accepted this position was because of Naruto." She said the last part quietly but still able to let the other 2 hear it. "I'm still getting reports of parties inside people's homes, celebrating your son's disappearance, and I can't take it anymore. Naruto was like a son to me, or like a little brother. Hearing them cheer for his disappearance is putting me in a state of depression. I know it's selfish, but I just can't take it." Kushina noticed tears began to form in older woman's eyes. "Tsunade?" she whispered. Tsunade sighed. "I know Minato won't accept the position, and the only other 3 good candidates are Kakashi, Jiraiya and, I can't believe I'm saying this, and Danzo. Kakashi I can't pick because after the whole retrieval mission 5 years ago, no other Jonin really trusts him since it was his technique that nearly killed your son. Jiraiya has to maintain his spy network for the sake of the village." Kushina mumbled about and peeking into women bathhouses. "And Danzo I can't choose for obvious reasons. But you, Kushina, like me, are a descendant of one of the 3 founding clans of Konoha, as well as an expert in Fujutsu. You could greatly increase the defense of the village. Furthermore, I've seen how well you deal with those people in politics. You're the perfect choice for Hokage, so please, if not for me, did for Naruto." Kushina bit her lip and thought about it long and hard. This was a tough decision for her to decide. She felt Minato slip his hand into hers, and when she looked at him he gave her a reassuring smile. Kushina sighed and looked at Tsunade. "Fine, I'll do it, for Naruto." Tsunade smiled. "Thank you, Kushina. I'm going to announce it to the council after you're done with the mission, which brings me back to my second topic." She pulled out a scroll from her desk and handed it to Kushina. "Jiraiya sent this to me a few days ago, information from his network. He reports that several groups of merchant ships, mostly from Wave, Wind, Spring, and Tea, have been heading towards your old country, the land of Whirlpool. Now this could only lead to one thing." Kushina's eyes widened at the realization of this information. "This means that someone has revived the country, perhaps even the village." Tsunade nodded. "Exactly. So far we don't know for sure, except they seem to be getting more trades with these nations than we are, which is crippling both the Fire Country and Konoha. Seeing how this involves the country, the Fire Daimyo will be coming here today actually to discuss with the council, including the Merchants Guild, which will involve civilian representatives." Kushina groaned at this part. "I believe that he is hoping that whoever is in charge of the nation now will be willing to form an alliance with us, seeing how we used to have one with them before. But for now I want you to focus on this mission to increase our relationship with Kirigakure." Both Jonin bowed and left the office, leaving Tsunade alone with her thoughts and a bottle of sake. 3 hours later at the gate of Konoha. Soon the 4 teams along with Minato and Kushina were gathered at the gate. Everyone was packed lightly with only the essentials. This was nothing new to them as they were used to carrying lightweight stuff and knew that speed was of the essence. However, many of the younger ninjas, like Kiba and Lee, were in fact very excited about working with the 4th Hokage. Minato went over with the other Jonins, minus Neji, to make sure everyone understood what to do. "Okay, let's head out and use caution," Minato said as he took to the trees followed by everyone else. They spread out through the forest in teams so they wouldn't attract too much attention while still keeping a view on the others. The trip wasn't very exciting or worth mentioning. Now and then some of the boys would try and strike up a conversation with Minato, but he merely just nodded his head or said some quick reply. The only ones really talking were Kushina and Hinata. The two already formed a good bond with Kurenai joining in now and then. Kakashi noticed that Minato didn't even give him a second glance. The Cyclops Jonin sighed as he realized how badly he messed up since he was never there for Naruto as he was growing up. Suddenly Akamaru perked up, his nose moving. Kiba noticed this and signaled to the others. Minato nodded and signaled for everyone to stop. When they did, Minato asked, "What is it, Kiba?" Minato asked. "Akamaru has picked up several scents up ahead, Kiri, I think." Then he frowned as he also sniffed the air. "And I smell another batch of ninjas, though their scent is odd. Like their chakra is all messed up or something," he said. Minato raised an eyebrow and turned towards Hinata. "Hinata-chan, what do you see with your Byakugan?" he asked. Hinata activated her dojutsu and scanned the area where the Kiri nins are. "I see them at least a mile away." Then her eyes widened. "Wait, it looks like they're fighting another group, and losing. Is this good or bad for us, Minato-san?" Guy asked. "Well, technically if these guys manage to kill off those Kiri nins, then we'll lose the chance to give the Fire Country some trade routes with Kirigakure. However, I don't want to rush in blindly. Move in slowly and stay quiet," Minato said. Everyone nodded and headed forward with great caution. A few minutes later they arrived and their eyes widened at what they saw. Almost all the Kiri nins were dead while the victors were gathering up the rest. The said victors wore black. They wore black short double trench coats with shoulder straps underneath gray light armor. Also they wore matching black pants with the black ninja sandals. On their heads were black caps with black peaks with a symbol on the front. Those who were escorting the prisoners had spear in their hands. However, one man stood out from the rest of them. He wore the same outfit except his shoulder straps were gold. He also had a small black cape strapped to his jacket and wore round spectacles and had trimmed black hair. He was also giving out orders to the others, meaning he had to be the captain of this group. "Why are they wearing such a strange outfits?" Kiba asked. "I don't know, but I wonder what village they're from," Ino asked as she tilted her head to the side trying to get a better look at them. Shikamaru rubbed his chin as he examined their clothes, their color and style. Then his eyes widened when he realized it, but before he could say anything Choji beat him to it. "They kind of look like the same guys who took Naruto 5 years ago," he said, not realizing the mistake he just did. For once Kushina heard that she jumped out of the tree she was hiding in and landed on the ground, catching everyone's attention. "Kushina," Minato thought as he signaled the rest to jump out of the trees and landed beside Kushina, who was just glaring at the man in charge of the others. The said man adjusted his glasses when he saw the headbands. "Konoha, eh?" he said. "Where is my son?" Kushina growled, releasing a killer intent that made everyone shiver a little. Kushina was acting like a mama bear when her cub was in danger and no one wanted that on them. The man cocked his head to the side while standing perfectly straight. "You know, when you meet someone new it's only proper to introduce yourself," he said with a smile. "Allow me to demonstrate. My name is SnKo Koban, captain of the 1st Seinfeld of Uzushiogakure." Everyone who knew that village gasped in shock. Kushina almost lost her balance. "You're from Uzushiogakure?" she asked. SnKo nodded. "Indeed I am, but I've said too much. Now you must tell me your name since I've told you mine." Instead of an answer in words, Sasuke charged him with his sword out. SnKo sighed and said, "Hosoku, 9-pillar lock." And suddenly 9 golden rods surrounded Sasuke's body, trapping him, no matter how much he struggled. "I do hate rude people. Though seeing how you're an Uchiha I should not be surprised," Sasuke growled at the man, but NK merely ignored him and looked at the other Konoha nins. Then he frowned when he saw Kakashi. Are you by chance Kakashi Hitaki? He asked. Kakashi raised an eyebrow and nodded. NK looked at the others. Then the rest of these people must be the members of Teams 7 through 10, no? When no one replied, NK looked directly at Kushina and Minato. And you two must be Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, parents of Naruto Uzumaki-sama. Everyone's eyes widened at the name, shocked to hear someone using such honorifics towards Naruto. Kushina growled and pulled out her katana. So you do know where my son is? She yelled. NK smirked and began to pull out his saber. His Majesty gave us the order to retrieve you two, and eliminate his past friends. That is why we allowed these Kiri nins to come into the Fire Country, because we knew that the Hokage would send you people to deal with them. He said, the last part taking a quick glance at Hinata, the one who had given them this information. Now then, die quickly and painlessly. Men attack. Before any of the Konoha nins could react, NK's men surrounded them and pulled out bow swords with guards on them from seals strapped to their wrists. Concentrating, they began to gather natural chakra around the bow to form the shape of an arrow. Then they fired, sending the arrows at blinding speed. Scatter! Minato yelled. With that, the ninjas jumped out of the way, dodging the explosion that the arrows created when they hit the ground. Kushina raised her katana and headed straight towards NK, who pulled out his sword, which was a saber. Their blades clashed and their duel began. You are quite skilled, Kushina-sama, just as the rumors say. It would be interesting how much you would fare against Hysen-sama. NK said. Kushina's eyes widened. Hysen? As in my brother Hysen? Was he involved in this as well? She asked as she dodged a strike from NK's sword. NK smirked. If you wish to know. He said as he dodged Kushina's attack and then swung at the red-head woman who dodged it easily. Then you have to join us. The other Konoha nins, minus Sasuke who was still trapped, were fighting the rest of the Uzu nins, who were doing very well with their bow swords. But what really caught them off guard was the jutsus that they were using. Not a single one is making any hand seals. What's going on? Minato thought as he dodged a swing from one of the ninjas. Futon. Pressure damage jutsu. Minato shouted and unleashed a blast of wind that pushed the ninja back a couple of feet. With him out of the way, Minato ran to help Kushina. NK was currently on the offensive while pushing Kushina back with his saber. When Kushina was far enough, NK raised his left hand. Hosoku. Bound by black chains. He said, and suddenly 10 small black spheres launched from his fingertips and headed towards Kushina. Before the woman could react, they surrounded her and linked to one another with black string and tightened around her, trapping her while forcing her to drop her katana. What the? I can't move, she cried as she fell to the ground. NK smirked as he walked up to her casually. The Seinfeld are the hunter nins of Uzushigakure. We are trained to Hosoku, Toraku and Fuin. Now I believe that it is time that you came with us. He says, as he was about to touch her. Suddenly a kunai headed straight for NK, but the man sensed and moved forward to dodge the blade. He turned around and saw Minato charging him. It seems that the knight in shining armor has come to save the princess. NK joked as he raised his saber. Soon natural chakra began to gather around the blade and suddenly NK swung his blade down, firing a chakra-shaped blade towards Minato. But just as it was about to hit him, the former Hokage disappeared. What? NK thought when he suddenly felt a presence behind on his other side. He turned around to see Minato coming at him with a Rasengan in his hand. Rasengan! Minato shouted as he slammed it into NK's chest. The impact sent the captain flying into a tree, causing smoke to spread everywhere from the crash site. Minato ran over to help Kushina, but he saw that her restraints that NK put around her already came off. My attack must have caused him to lose focus on the technique. Minato thought to himself as he looked at Sasuke, who was getting up, and then he offered a hand to his wife. Kushina smiled and was about to take it when her eyes suddenly widened. Minato followed her gaze and his eyes too widened. NK was already getting up, and even though there was a hole on his suit where Minato had hit him, there was no wound on the man. How? Minato asked in confusion. That attack should have knocked him out or even killed him. He thought to himself. NK ignored Minato and brushed himself off. I admit that was a pretty close call there, Minato-sama. He said as he picked up his sword. Now it's my turn. And he suddenly disappeared and reappeared right in front of Minato. He's fast, Minato thought as he pulled out a kunai and prepared to deflect the saber coming down. Only for both of their weapons to be stopped by a third blade, a pure silver one at that. Both men looked and were surprised at who it was. Hyson? Minato asked in shock. Hyson-sama, SnKo said, who was also shocked at the appearance of the man. Kushina, however, was silent as she stared at her little brother, her mouth opened while her eyes widened. Hyson-nichan? She said finally. The said man looked at her for a moment before glaring at Minato. The glare made Minato jump back a few feet along with Kushina, while SnKo stood by Hyson's side. In fact, all the other Uzu nins had jumped back and gathered around Hyson. Hyson, however, sheathed his sword and looked at SnKo. I thought I told you to finish off the Kiri nins and bring back the leader's body right away. Instead I had to come here, deal with the survivors and to see you guys in a little skirmish. Now what do you suppose Naruto will say to this? Everyone turned towards once and were shocked to see nothing but a large pile of ash. SnKo, however, said to Hyson, my apologies Hyson-sama. I had not intended to take so long in fighting these Konoha nins. I shall offer my sincerest apologies to His Majesty for myself and my men. Kiba snorted. Why the hell do you keep calling that baka, His Majesty? It's not like he's actually royalty. He said. Hinata glared at her teammate but Kushina struck Kiba on the head, causing him to hit the ground. Then she turned back at her brother. Hyson, what's going on? Why did you guys take away my son from Konoha? Hyson snorted before turning to face his sister. Well, first off, to save him from being killed by a bunch of stupid villagers and ninjas. But furthermore, he said with a serious tone. He wanted to speak to him. I don't think I have to tell you who he is. Kushina's eyes widened, knowing who he was talking about. However, the rest of the Konoha nins were confused by this. Why would he want to speak to Naruto? What's wrong with the way the world is? He never had any problems before. And why don't you seem surprised to see us? The last part was at random, but she was kind of shocked that he didn't seem surprised to see them since he must have known she had died. Kushina-chan, who is he talking about? Minato asked as he looked at his wife and then his brother-in-law. Kushina opened her mouth but was cut off when Hyson yelled. Don't you dare say a word, Kushina. He may be your husband, but by telling him our greatest secret you will be exiled by name and body from our clan. And just because you're Naruto's mother doesn't give you special rights. That made Kushina shut her mouth. Minato raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Hyson continued, as to why, well, let's just say that he's not pleased with the results of his son's work. Furthermore, the time has come for our clan to reunite and bring order to this world, which we shall with the Naruto leading us. Sakura raised an eyebrow. You're not serious, are you? She asked, causing everyone to look at her. I mean, sure, Naruto is pretty good at raising morale, but being a leader, he's not exactly good in politics if you want my opinion. Hyson sighed and shook his head. I expected no less from the girl who would constantly hit my nephew to doubt his abilities. Sakura looked down at the comment, seeing how true it was. Also, the reason why I'm not surprised is because I was the one who cast you out of Naruto and into this world with the help of him. He said, shocking Kushina and Minato. But before they could reply, Hyson motioned one of the hunter nins to pick up Yumi's body. We shall be taking our leave now. Oh, and give these to the Hokage, will ya? Hyson said as he pulled out a large scroll and threw it at Kushina, who caught it. Also remember, our threat still stands. Hyson said, and then all of the Uzu nins disappeared in a flash, much to everyone's surprise. Minato put a reassuring hand on Kushina while the said woman squeezed the scroll in anger. Minato turned to everyone else. We're heading back, he said sadly, knowing that the mission was a failure. Konoha Anbu headquarters. A few hours later, Tsunade, Minato, Kushina, Ibiki and Shizune, along with dozens of Anbu ninjas, were inside a large empty room. After returning from the mission and reporting from what they found out, Tsunade took the couple to the Anbu headquarters so they could release whatever was inside the scroll in private and in case it was a trap. Kushina bent down and unrolled the scroll across the floor. She noticed many complex seals on it, some old and some new. From what I can tell by the seals, it seems that there is a person or several inside it. Kushina said. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Do we know if it is just corpses or living people? She asked. Kushina looked at the symbols for a moment before replying, living. The seals here are used to allow the person inside the scroll to be held in animation until they are released, so whoever is in it must be alive. Tsunade nodded. Very well, release them from the scroll, she said as Ibiki signaled the Anbus to be ready. Kushina nodded and performed a few hand signs before slamming her hand on the scroll. Suddenly smoke filled the room for a while, and when it died down everyone gasped. For lying on top of the scroll was the first, second, third Hokage and Mito Uzumaki, all of them looking like they were in their early to mid-30s. Mito was wearing a blue and yellow kimono while the three men were wearing their ninja gear. No one said a word, too shocked to believe it. Before anyone could react, the four people suddenly began to move. Then their eyes opened slowly and slowly they got up. "Ah, my head hurts," Hashirama murmured to himself before looking around. Tobirama followed his lead, then Mito and Hiruzen. Soon they realized everyone else in the room including each other. Mito and Harashima immediately hugged one another, happy to see the other despite the situation. Hiruzen however noticed Minato and Kushina, the latter starting to give him an angry glare. "Minato, Kushina, how, you son of a bitch!" Kushina cried and lunged for the third Hokage, intending to kill him again probably. It was only thanks to the combined effort of both Minato and Tsunade that held the redhead back from the startled Sarutobi. This could take a while. Tsunade thought to herself as her grandfather and great-granduncle were looking at her in shock. Hokage Mansion, Hokage Office. An hour or two later Tsunade, Shizune, Kushina, Minato, Hashirama, Tobirama, Mito and Hiruzen were all sitting in the Hokage's office with Tsunade explaining everything that has happened so far. Kushina was still glaring at Hiruzen, making the third nervous, but soon she was joined by Mito, her husband and brother-in-law, when Tsunade revealed to them about Naruto's life in the village. "Hiruzen, how could you?" Mito asked. She knew the pain that a Jinchuriki went through being one herself, which is why their identities were kept a secret from not just other nations, but from the village that they were in. "How could you allow the people of Konoha to mistreat him for so long?" she asked again. Hiruzen looked down in shame as the two Uzumaki females and his two predecessors all glared at him. "I had no choice. The elders, civilian council and Fugaku Uchiha." The two Senjus and Mito groaned at the Uchiha name. "Outvoted me about keeping Naruto's identity as the container a secret, but also outvoted me about revealing his relationship to Minato. The last part one agreed with a little since I didn't want other nations to target him." Mito just scoffed at this, say there were plenty of enemies inside Konoha, while Tobirama was shaking his head, not knowing whether to feel ashamed at Hiruzen or to his other two students. Then Kushina asked why did he lie to her brother about Naruto, which caused Hiruzen to raise an eyebrow. "Your brother? I never even saw him after the event. I was too busy assigning trustworthy Anbu to watch over your son during his infancy. I left Kaharu and Hamaru in charge of my work. I hadn't been in my office a lot during that time trying to make sure Naruto-kun was safe." He said straightforward that there wasn't a hint of deception. Tsunade coughed. "Well, I think the only way to find out for sure would to have Inoichi look into your memories, but seeing how delicate this is I would rather wait till later." Still, despite this entire fiasco with Naruto, one question remained. "How are we alive?" Hashirama asked. "The last thing I remember was being brought back to life by one of your students, Hiruzen. Then you used some kind of seal with the Shinigami to seal our souls." Minato rubbed his chin before a thought came to his head. "This is just a theory, but the most possible reason is that Hyson and whoever this other man is, must have somehow used a seal to take our souls out of the Shinigami and bring us back to this world. I think with this it was because we were in the way of Naruto releasing the Kyuubi, but you four it must have been by accident." Mito's eyes widened when it hit her and she looked at Kushina. "Wait, Kushina-chan, was this his plan?" she asked worryingly. Kushina looked down but nodded. "Yes, Mito-sama, it is that person, he's the one behind all this." Everyone else was confused, not having a clue of what they were talking about. Finally Tsunade said, "Will one of you tell us who he is?" Both Uzumaki women looked at each other before Mito sighed. "What I'm about to tell you is a well-kept secret of the Uzumaki clan, and one that if spoken to outsiders could result in terrible consequences. No one from outside this room must know of this, understood?" When everyone nodded their heads, Mito took a deep breath. "The man we are talking about is the Rikudo Sennin, the sage of the 6 paths and our clan's founder." Everyone's, minus Kushina, jaws dropped at the news. Are you telling me that the Sage of the Six Paths, the god of ninjutsu, was alive all this time? Furthermore, he was the one who founded your clan. Tsunade asked, still unable to believe it. Hashirama scratched his chin. It does make sense when you think about it. He said, getting everyone's attention. It would explain your clan's large chakra reserves as well as longevity. Everyone took that in, seeing how much that made sense. Before anyone could say anything else, the door opened and 3 unwelcome people came in. Danzo, Kaharu, Hamaru. Hokage-sama, we must discuss about the incident with Kiri and what on earth. Danzo asked as his eye widened at seeing Hokages 1 through 3 along with Mito all sitting around the Hokage's desk. Kaharu's mouth dropped while Hamaru cleaned his glasses and took another look until he followed suit with his colleague. All the Hokages, the 2 Uzumakis and the 5th assistant all blinked several times, wondering how to explain all this. Finally Tsunade said, "This is going to be a long one. That's all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments."